it was my son's first day at college. He went to college, I went to work, just a normal day. I came back from work, sat on my sister's sofa and received a phone call, Mary had been stabbed.
I'm Michelle Livesey and I'm a journalist with Bauer Media, which owns radio stations across the country, from Magic to Absolute to Kiss, as well as the Greatest Hits and Hits networks. This episode of Opening Minds, Opening Doors is focusing on knife crime awareness and education. We're looking at speaking to young people about knife crime, the devastating impact knife crime can have on families, and helping young people make informed choices and the right decisions going forward. With me are two very special guests. We've got Kelly Brown, who's experienced firsthand the devastating impact knife crime can have, and also Jo Paddock, who's a Senior Deputy Head Teacher of the North Birmingham Academy. Jo, starting with you first of all, what's your role in knife crime education?
So as a school, we play a really critical part in the education for our young people. We are, to the majority of our students, a bit of a safe haven in what can be a little bit of a chaotic world. And especially in our area, we've got an area of social deprivation and some really challenging circumstances. And our role really is just to inform the students and educate them as much as we can on knife crime, the statistics, the consequences of being involved, how they can be pulled into such things, and obviously support them if they are impacted by those types of incidences. And obviously, Kelly, bringing you in there, you've experienced firsthand the devastating impact of knife crime. Tell us a bit about how your experience came about.
So in September 2021, on the 9th, it was my son's first day at college. He went to college, I went to work, just a normal day. I came back from work, sat on my sister's sofa and received a phone call, Mary had been stabbed. At that point, I was just dead calm. I was like, right, okay. All I knew was in Old Trafford. So got into my sister's car. I just said, just drive to Old Trafford. We didn't know where we was going. We didn't know nothing. So we drove to Old Trafford. I remember getting to Brook Spa in Old Trafford and there was lights and it was just like a horror movie. There was flashing lights, it was taped off, my heart just sank. I just knew that was Mero. The ambulance at the time was driving off. I jumped out the car screaming at the ambulance, like, let me in, it didn't. So at that time, I got back in the car, I was on the phone to Dad, and I was like, right, there's two different hospitals, there's the Manchester Royal Infirmary or Old Trafford. I went to Old Trafford, Dad went to Royal Infirmary. I remember getting to Old Trafford and they were like, no, there's no Romero here. So then I just knew, like, my sister got back in the car, my sister was shouting at me because I couldn't breathe. I felt like I was going to have a stroke. She's like, just breathe. And I was like, okay. Driving back to Royal Infirmary then, I was literally at the lights 2 minutes away. Dad phoned me and told me he'd gone. So that's my experience of not saying goodbye to him.
What came after that in terms of what happened? What were you told had happened, to Mero?
So when I got into the hospital and obviously seeing him like that, I was screaming at the doctors, the police, everyone. I was like, just tell me what's happened. And he got attacked with his friends. He got chased down by a machete knife. I think it was a zombie knife and a machete, and he got stabbed in the legs and it hit his main artery in his leg.
So in a split second, you've gone from having a son who was on his way to college to getting that phone call that no mum should ever receive.
Yeah, it's devastating, it's hard, but since that, I've just turned my pain into a fight for a change around knife crime.
What made you want to do that?
I used to work in a school and I was one of these teachers who wouldn't speak, and if the headmaster would be like, do you want to do an assembly? And I was like, oh no, I'm not doing that. I was dead shy. But then since Mary, I was like, I'm not keeping quiet. There's no way. Like, more needs to be done. It's knife crime's not going away. It's a pandemic out there. And if I can save another parent going through the pain I am going through still, then I will do my best to do that.
So what do you do as part of the work that you do now?
So since Meryl's death, we are now a registered charity, Meryl's World Foundation, and we install bleed safety cabinets all over Manchester. We've installed 34 so far. I also run a youth hub in Fallowfield to keep the children safe. And I go to schools raising awareness, into colleges, proofs, anywhere will open the doors to me, I'll go in. And I also support other mothers who've been through the same tragedy as me.
Going back to you, Jo, and the educational side of things and having that conversation and opening that conversation, how important is that? It's
really important. You know, unfortunately, like Kelly said, society at the moment, it's just become the norm. It's become the norm for you know, young people to carry knives. It's become the norm for them to know somebody that carries knife. It's become the norm for them to know or be not associated, but know of somebody who has been a victim of knife crime in whatever way, shape or form that is. You know, in the West Midlands, last year the statistics were horrendous. Nearly 5,000 instances of knife crime within the West Midlands. You know, that's approximately 13 a day. And that ranges from a robbery using a knife, or somebody you know, carrying a knife with the intent to harm or injure somebody else. So it's crucial, because ultimately, if they're not going to get that education from schools, you know, we are the ones that have the tools and the access to the resources to be able to support them as best we can do. And if we're not doing that, then where are they going to get it from? They turn to social media, you know, to get the advice and guidance and help that they want. But actually on social media, they're just exposed to it all the time. It's so accessible that it's scary. Mm. It's really scary.
What do you find, Kelly, when you're speaking to young people? What are they saying? Are they, obviously, how did they react when you tell, you know, what happened to Romero?
Yeah, after I've spoken to the pupils, there's a few that will come up and speak to me after the assemblies and stuff, and a lot of them just say they're proud of my strength and they don't understand where my strengths come from, and I'm like, it's to protect you guys from this cruel world we live in at the moment.
When you hear statistics like you've just said there, I mean, obviously that's something that you're aware of on the West Midlands, but how do you feel, Kelly, when you see it day in, day out? You know, was it 13 incidents a day or whatever? But when you're seeing another life lost to knife crime, how does that make you feel as a mother who's been through that?
It brings it all back. I've just recently moved since Mero. About a year ago I moved, and when I moved, it happened again, just right round the corner from my new house, and I'm like, oh my God, I got on the phone straight to the police. I'm like, what is going on? More needs to be done about this. It's a joke. Too many kids, it's kids killing kids. That's the biggest pandemic we've got. And it can be over materialistic things, just to fit in with the peers, peer pressure, it could be anything, but it really needs to stop.
Why do you think it is that kids are in this day and age now where they feel they have to carry a knife or be around that kind of culture of carrying knives?
A lot of it's through fear. You know, we find that young people will carry a knife through fear, whether in their head they think they're protecting themselves. But again, statistics will show that actually a lot of young people who are stabbed or a victim of knife crime, it's with their own knife that they're carrying. But a lot of the feedback is that it's through their own fear, isn't it? They feel they have to for their own protection. And that may, you know, they may not be necessarily involved directly in something, but again, it's what they see on social media, it's what they see on the news, it's what they hear, you know, when they're talking with each other and their peers. It's scary.
Yeah. I also think most of the time, it's if they see someone with a nice jacket and they're just hurting someone just to get that jacket or get the bag they want, So it's materialistic things as well, like using these knives for as well. But little do they know, them using them knives are just to make that simple stab wound. Like in Meryl's instance, they turned around and said they just wanted to scare him in court. That's what I was told by the perpetrators. And I'm like, you've done more than like scared him. You thought stabbing him in the legs, he'd be fine. He hit his main artery, so they're just doing it just for the anything I think really, like materialistic things, just to fit in. And like you said, it's fair.
Yeah.
But that's what I do raise a lot of when I do go into schools. A lot of the times when you are carrying, you're more likely to get hurt with your own knife.
You mentioned social media as well, Jo. How big an issue is that? Because it's everywhere now, isn't it? Yeah. And there's no escaping from it. And we were talking earlier about a younger age group are being exposed to it. There's no escape from it.
No, it's massive. And we, as well as our extensive PSHE curriculum on knife crime, you know, child exploitation, grooming, gang affiliation, etc., we also do a lot of work around social media and the negative impacts that is having on society. We explain to our parents and to our young students that ultimately the moment they choose to have a mobile phone in their hand, they have the world in their hand. And the reality is they don't have the emotional maturity or the skills. And actually the parents, unfortunately, given how fast it evolves, don't have that knowledge to be able to protect them. So they don't have those skills to be able to say, no, that's not appropriate, and that's, you know, that is. And ultimately they can go on Snapchat, the reality is, on Snapchat, on TikTok, and there it's accessible to them. They can find out where to buy one from, they can purchase one from, it's same links to drugs. You know, they can do a post on social media and accidentally be wearing the wrong item of clothing, or accidentally be doing the wrong thing with a hand, or accidentally say the wrong thing, or somebody may just take a dislike to it, and all of a sudden there's a threat to them, and all of a sudden, you know, there's an issue in their social group or external to it. It's we try and protect them as best we can do, and I know parents desperately want to, but the reality is the government needs to do more, social media companies need to do more, funding needs to be there, you know, to be able to provide more safe havens for the young people. I think you're a real credit for doing the youth club, because ultimately that is a one big thing that society has lost, somewhere for our young people to go and be safe and socialise with each other. You know, when the government unfortunately pulled back all of the funding for that, they have nothing to do they? And they're bored. And so they, you know, they build their circle of friends. Well,
you mentioned with the youth club that you've set up since Romero's death. What impact has that had? What feedback do you get from that?
It's a massive impact within Fallowfield. That's where the youth club is run, because there was a gap in there, and now all the like the community and the mothers and the dads just thank me for doing it. It's just giving them, the kids, a safe place to be and to be kids. And that's what we need. PlayStation, obviously meet girls, just being kids. That's all I want to do. Like, you even get some the boys who want to make bracelets, and they're like 9 and 10, but they just want to go back to being a kid rather than being out on the streets having nothing to do.
In terms of parents, and we spoke about having that conversation, before Romero's death, is that something you thought about in terms of knife crime, or was it something you didn't really think about?
I didn't really think about it, if I'm honest, yeah. And I think you just think about it more when it's literally on your doorstep and then it's just happened to you. But before that, no, you just never think it's going to happen to your child. So it wasn't.
And when you've had those conversations with parents, as well as obviously the children that you're speaking to as well, what has that opened their eyes? Is that helping them have conversations with their children?
Yeah, 100%. So in the youth club as well, I ran my own workshop within there, and the kids, even the girls, were putting their hands up, and then later on the feedback from the parents, like, thank you, Kelly, for letting our kids be aware of how our streets are. And I was like, it needs to be addressed more. I feel like I hit a brick wall when it comes to primary school. One primary school have accepted me to come in and share my story and raise awareness with knife crime, But I just wanted to ask you, like, why am I hitting that brick wall? I feel like year 5 and 6 are an important age to get to before they transition into high school, and it's the vital age to get them at. And I just want to ask you, why is it so difficult and hard?
I think, and again, I think the reality is parents are almost scared of exposing them too young, and so therefore primaries want to protect them, as much as they can do. And I suppose there is a little bit of fear from schools about the negative feedback they're going to get by exposing them as young as what they have. But we tailor, our year 7s when they come in, we obviously have year 7 through to year 13, and right from year 7 they access the curriculum around knife crime and all the other related topics. And the only difference that we do is the choice of language that we would use around them, or if we're using, or our guest speakers are using some type of visual image, it would be slightly tailored more to the younger audience, so that we're not terrifying them, but actually we're doing our job. We've got a duty of care to educate them and to protect them. So I think, as parents, we don't want to. I've got 2 children. I had those conversations really quite openly, but I think that's because of the area that I work in and what I do on a daily basis. But I do know that some of our parents don't want them to know what's out there and what they're potentially facing in society. But the reality is, again, I go back to a mobile phone. The moment you put a mobile phone in their hand, no matter how much you try and lock it down, they are at risk of being exposed to it. So we'd rather they have the facts and the support and, the signposting, rather than just shutting down any type of conversation around it.
And of course as well, obviously, Kelly, you said that you won't be silenced. This is your mission now, to educate, to try and eradicate knife crime. When you go into those schools and speak to those children about your experience, do you feel like you're getting through to them in a sense of this is an extreme, what can happen if you carry a knife? This is what can happen. Do you feel like you get that message across?
I do get it across, because from the feedback I get from the pupils at the end, and I always say, like, if I get through to 1, I'm saving 1 life. So that's my mission moving forward, and just getting through to just 1. If I get through more than 1, well, that's amazing. But yeah, that's all I can do, really. Keep pushing.
And I will say, the reality is, using guest speakers like Kelly who have had that real life experience, we use, sadly, other parents like Kelly to come in and speak to our children, and they actually, because they've experienced it, because it's real life, because it's not a teacher standing in front of them giving them, their education, if you like, they do listen that little bit more. They do take in and they do absorb what our guests are saying. So it's a brilliant story, a sad story, and one that no parent wants to have to tell, but you are having an impact. And very often our parents and our students' feedback is really, really positive. And that's sometimes how it opens up conversations at home with parents who would never necessarily do that. Our students listen to our guest speakers, they go home, they then talk openly to their parents, which then informs that dialogue and that conversation. And all of a sudden, a parent's got an open door when they may not have had that before.
What I want to say is, obviously we're talking about Romero and you're talking about what happened to Romero. But tell us about Romero. What was he like? He's a 17-year-old boy.
He was 16 at the time. Okay. He's fun-loving. We called him the joker of the family, like a total joker. In the community, you could hear him coming with his mouth before you could actually see him. And his laugh, he had a loud, infectious laugh. He just loved being with his family and his friends. Like, he was just a fun-loving kid and really missed.
Many people will be able to associate like that, because you're talking about a son, a brother, a friend, a cousin, and we were saying about the impact of knife crime. It's a ripple effect, isn't it? So his friends will have experienced as much hurt and pain as the community as well.
Yeah, I've said it from day one, like, me losing Romero, it's like throwing a stone in the river. It's not just affecting me and the dad, it's also affecting all his friends, then the community. The community pulled in together, they were amazing. But it just shows you how many people's lives it can affect just for one careless act of knife crime.
So what overall do you think needs to be done? Because we were talking about the government doing more, we were talking about education. What do you think needs to be done?
The government need to... They made false promises the other week and put in the papers, oh, they're going to ban these zombie knives and this, that and the other. I did an interview and I was like, I really want some action rather than your words, because months later it's still no different. These zombie knives can be like gained access quite easy. So banning zombie knives, I feel like primary schools need to open the doors up a bit more. I know, like you said, they're protecting the parents and that, but do you want another parent to be sat here going through that?
Do you know what's really useful? And it's kind of the next stage that we're going, actually. We are, we've done a lot of work around educating our young people. And you know, there's a ripple effect with that, with the education as it goes home and that conversation's had. But we're actually doing, next academic year, a lot more work with educating our parents and the carers. So that may be a route for you to go down, rather than going to the young people and you know, the children straight from the off. Actually do a parental workshop where they can be informed, give them the confidence to be able to have that dialogue with their children. You know, because with the best will in the world, they don't have access to the information that we have, the experiences that we have, the resources that we have, and they are just trying to parent these young adults who are growing up in a society that's changed very, very differently to how it was when they were younger, when we were younger. So that might be an option, a route to go down.
And also as well, I mean, a lot of schools do things in different ways, but how important is it that, I guess, schools as a whole embrace it as well, embrace that education of knife crime, the conversations about knife crime?
We have a duty of care to protect our young children and to safeguard them as much as we can. You know, there's a whole array of different topics covered under safeguarding, but knife crime, unfortunately, and serious youth violence is such a prevalent topic at the moment, not only within education, but in society, through the police, through the government, etc., etc. So we have that duty of care, and the more resources that we can pull on, then the better it is. So it's about giving, you know, the young people different access to information, and like I've said, signposting. So if they are ever in a situation where they need help and support, or need that bit of guidance, or they know of somebody that needs that, then they know where to go. You know, a lot of schools have really solid safeguarding teams, and obviously all the staff are safeguarded. So we are, again, that safe haven, that hub of advice and guidance and support for our young people. And that goes the same with our parents as well. You know, quite often we will get parents coming to us and asking for guidance, or how they tackle a certain topic with their young people. But we work collaboratively with West Midlands Police. We work with the Violence Reduction Unit, who provide us with lots of different workshops for our young people. We've just recently had the VR headsets in, where we talk to the young students get to do about choices, and they're in a reality world, if you like, and it's all about the choices that they make. And any safeguarding topic that we educate about, it's about their choices, it's about choices in society, choices in school, choices, you know, with friends.
So based on everything that we've been talking about today, obviously, whether it's parents, children, anyone listening, where can they go to find out more information and advice and even help?
I mean, your first stop is school. Like I've said, you know, every school has and should have a real solid safeguarding hub that can signpost then and get additional support and help if needs be. So first port of call is the school, and they'll have different reporting you know, procedures, whether it's a phone call, whether it's in person, whether it's just via their website. And then the other one we quite often direct to is Childline. Just again, it's just a one-stop shop really for any type of support.
And obviously, Kelly, from your point of view, you're speaking to people day in, day out. Where do you point them if they're worried or they want more information?
They can reach out to Merrill's World Foundation. We're on all the social media platforms. Also, I've worked alongside with the VIU, and like you said before, they've got loads of programmes available out there. And also One Message is run by Matthew Norford. He is amazing what he does, and he goes into schools and helps the young children as well.
Thank you so much for that really powerful insight into knife crime and the education surrounding that. If anyone needs any more information on any of our Opening Minds, Opening Doors podcasts, you can go to the website openingmindsopeningdoors.co.uk and also just search Opening Minds, Opening Doors on social media.